men are designed, built for, and need relationships. They are built for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Salty Pastor Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping you learn and grow in your faith. It is a journey of faith that you must go on. You are on a journey of faith whether you want to be or not, and you're either growing or shrinking in your faith. And while we here at the Salty Pastor believe that you have to figure things out, you have to decide for yourself, you have to think for yourself, you have to critically think, it is your journey. That doesn't mean you have to do it alone. We can come alongside you to encourage you, to challenge you, to entertain you sometimes with some bad jokes, but ultimately we want to be part of your journey, but you are the one that's on the journey. We are not going to be able to do it for you. So my name is Jesse Mayer. I'll be your host, but we cannot do the Salty Pastor Podcast without the Salty Pastor himself, Dr. Douglas Peake.
So good to be here, everybody. If you're listening to this podcast, Jesse got a brand new haircut. Boy, he's looking
for our audio only people, I look great.
You look great. You look fly. So
I was getting a little.
Yeah, I'm really excited about what we're talking about right now. I think it's so seminal. I think that everybody agrees that relationships, particularly when it comes to men, are just not in a good place. And the question is, why is that? And, the common, stereotype is, well, the problem is men. It's always been men, and men need to figure it out and level up. And I'm like, really? Is that it? Maybe we need a deeper analysis and think through these things critically. So I'm excited about this current series that we're doing, and I think we're going to discover some things. And, of course, I'm going to be salty again and say some things that are going to make you think. But my goal isn't to tell you what to think, but to say these things so that you think about them and come to your own conclusions.
Absolutely. And our series is focused on men. We're calling it Desperado. So if you missed our worship team's cover of the song last week, you should definitely go back and watch that, and or do both, and also listen to the sermon if you haven't seen it, because the message was really great. I really like this song that we used because it expresses what you're talking about, but they were expressing these desires and these unsatisfaction 50 years ago.
50 years ago.
And it captures that experience that most men are having today. And so I would say it's almost kind of a contagion at this point. Yeah. It's making its way through a lot of people. And one of the lines in the song that I really love is, you got to let someone love you before it's too late.
Yeah.
I think, we've talked about this pretty extensively about how men are just kind of retreating into themselves and they want to do it all on their own because they just don't trust that anybody else wants them around or will love them. And so that idea of you have to let someone love you, and we need to help men turn the tide on this ideology and discover what it means to love and be loved.
Yeah. Men have been burned, betrayed, and beaten up. So, I think that song captures, that ethos. It's not that men are weak. It's just that it's better for me to just be out here, do my own thing, and just not really care or engage anymore. And I think that's the issue. And so that's why these principles are so critically important. These are what I call axiomatic principles. They're self-evident, and they are always true no matter what. And the first principle that's axiomatic is that men are designed, built for, and need relationships. They are built for that. Now, what's really interesting is if you're a scientific materialist, an atheist, you're a person who doesn't believe in God, that there is a creator of the universe, then you aren't built for that. You're only built for survival of the fittest. So on one side, it's like, okay, then I should be out here on the range doing my own thing. But what you have to understand is that your life then has no meaning or purpose or value to it, right? Nothing you do matters, and then you're extinct. Right. So, have fun trying to have a great life
by yourself,
believing that. Yeah. It just doesn't work. If you believe the definition of what it means to be a human being that comes from the Bible, that God created you, then that means you are designed to be in community with other men and other women. And that you're also designed in Genesis, chapter 1 is that we're designed to be with a woman. Now, on occasion, is there a departure from that? Yeah, Jesus talked about that. It's a gift from God. We were initially designed to bond, though, the vast majority of males, with a female, all right? We were meant to love and be loved. In the garden, it worked great, okay? Spiritually, this plays out, though, in our lives that because we have a thirst in our soul for something more, because it's a reflection of our thirst for God as males. So when a male is right with God, guess what happens? He then thirsts for a female relationship, right? He sees it as a good thing, not a bad thing. But if a man isn't right with God, the most important relationship, right, then he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he needs or what he wants. He doesn't know what it means to be truly a man. Guess what? He's finding his identity in things. Then female relationships become secondary, and they become tools to whatever goal that he might have. So there is a physiological component to this in the real world. When men aren't right with God, and they're not right with women, and they're not right with friends or other communities, guess what? Their testosterone drops, their sperm counts drop. Men are lose ambition. They are purely distracted. In many ways, they become isolated and addicted. These are not good things. These are not good things for men. It's not good for them as individuals, but it's definitely not good for society. So this whole notion that men are built, designed for, and need relationships is an axiomatic truth that we cannot deny. It has to be held at the highest level because it's true.
Well, and I think we've seen lots of examples of how men don't do well when they're alone. When they're alone, they start getting into obsessive habits, like maybe it's video games, or maybe it's eating, or maybe it's porn, or whatever it might be. They tend to say, well, if I'm not welcome out there, I'm just going to do my own thing here and just retreat further and further and further into myself.
Yes.
And ultimately, most of those habits turn into addictions, and most of them are not healthy. And so they just start spiraling, and then it further degrades, and then their desire to ever relate with anybody just decreases further and further and further.
Yeah,
right?
and that's like in the line in the song. Doesn't he say in there that the things you are doing, they're hurting you somehow?
Yeah.
In other words, you're doing them because they're helping you cope, but they're hurting you, and you don't realize it.
Right. I mean, you can see, before the age of internet, it was probably you're going out to a bar and just drinking yourself into some sort of state of like, this is the only way I can be happy, things of that nature. So it's like there's all kinds of different ways that this has played out over time. It's not a recent trend. We were seeing people piling up in bars or in drug addictions, or just not doing anything helpful to society for years and years and years.
There's always been a group of men that lacked ambition, right? And kind of lived for themselves, or there was always a percent of men that did that, but it was a small percent, maybe single-digit percent. But now what's happening is our society is producing men like this in double-digit percents. It's up there in the 20, 30, 40. What happens when you have 60% of men that become that? And then to me, what happens is tyranny. You have a few really, really strong men who want to control and have power over everybody else. We become sheeple, for men, are meant to be sheepdogs. They're not meant to be wolves, and they are not meant to be sheep. They are meant to be sheepdogs. And so we have to figure that out, which leads us to the next principle that's axiomatic, and that is masculinity is what drives men into relationships. You see? Masculinity is what's going to drive you to build friendships with other men and go on adventures and do things and say, I need more than just TV. I need more than just video games. Like a lot of guys now, it's really interesting, though, is because there was a period of time, my youngest son, because of COVID and stuff in school, he built a computer and he does this and he games, right? And so my wife came to me one day and said, I'm really concerned that he's in his room all the time and he just plays games, and this isolation is not good. So I thought, that's interesting. I need to go check that out. So what I did is I got in there and I kind of would go watch him play games and do stuff like that. And one of the things is that he has a headset and he has a Discord server hooked up. And so these guys get on and they're playing with all their friends and all these guys, and they're talking and stuff like that. And I'm going, aha, that's still interesting. Yeah. So,
and that's not an common thing, right? Like that is a way of connecting. It's like there's people that I used to tour with all the time that's how we connect these days, is we get on our video game consoles and put our headsets on, and we'll still catch up and chat. So it's not that all video games are bad or all whatever is bad, right? It's just you can get to a point where you do just shut everything off and you're just by yourself and you're not interacting with anybody.
See, there's a big difference there. I think that's a very important thing. Masculinity draws you into community with other guys. Masculinity forces you to want to connect with and do things together, and they're doing it in the gaming world. And I think there's a really positive component to that. I remember one of my best friends called me. He lives out of state now. He calls me, hey, he goes, what's up? I'm just calling to touch base. We talked for 7 minutes on the phone. And my wife is like, your best friend calls you. You guys talk for 7 minutes. 7 minutes? I mean, what's that?
We caught up on all the things. Yeah. Kids good, wife good.
Yeah, we're good. I'll send you something. Hey, we'll read this. We text each other and do other stuff too. But anyway, I go, we're just not phone talkers. Yep. We get together and do things together. And so what's interesting about that is you can get a guy on a game, right? And he'll get on a Discord with his best friend. They'll be on it for 2 hours.
Or more.
And talk, right? And so it's interesting is if you're just face to face, right? And Kim Cross, our parenting coach, says this about masculinity is always shoulder to shoulder.
Yes.
Guys doing stuff together. So my point is that masculinity drives men into relationships. It causes them to build friendships. It causes them to want to get married, right? It's their masculinity. If a guy is disinterested in sex, if he's disinterested in children, disinterested in family, he feels his life has no purpose, and he can watch a little porn on the side. So what? Why do I need a woman and all that aggravation? But it's masculine men who want to leave their mark on the world. They want to have a legacy and they want to make a difference. That's masculinity that drives them to marriage. That masculinity drives them to say, I just don't want to live for myself. I want to have a woman that I provide for and protect and secure, and I make her life in this world better because I'm running interference for her and I'm creating a safe environment for her to thrive and prosper. That's a masculine quality. And so the more we de-emphasize masculinity, guess what? You get a whole lot less of that. And we see that in the stats. All these guys, 60% of males under 30 are not married. Between the ages of 20 and 30 years old are not married. And half of those guys have no desire to get married or even go out on a date with a woman. To me, that's a scary stat because what that says is that masculinity is dropping. Testosterone is dropping. Sperm counts are dropping.
Right.
And so I just think masculinity, we need a lot more of it. What's interesting is when your soul is awakened, right? When your soul is really awakened as a man, is when your masculinity really becomes more important to you.
Well, you're becoming more of yourself, right? It's like, and then you start discovering who you really are. I've seen, I was talking to my small group about this the other day. My time here at Foothills has really increased my understanding of what a man is supposed to be. Are the men in my life all perfect? No.
I'll vouch for that.
My walk with Jesus has awakened my desire to discover the authentic masculinity. Right. And there are men in my life that demonstrate aspects of that very well. And so I've personally gone through this just in the last 3 to 4 years I've been here. I've seen a huge growth in the way I interact with other men, which was never my strong suit. It's like I can talk to girls all day because I used to dance, and I was more comfortable with women than I was with being around other men. And now it's like I can hold my own conversation. I may not be into as much shooting or whatever is considered masculine
pursuits,
activities, but I can have an authentic conversation about what God believes masculinity is and how we may pursue different interests as far as our hobbies, but we are aligned in the way we should be protecting our families and striving in the world. So
and building and innovating and creating. One of my favorite philosophers and apologists is William Lane Craig, and he says, I came to faith when I was a junior, senior in high school, and he said, even though salvation is awesome, redemption is great, blah, blah, he goes, the most important thing that it did for me is it gave my life meaning. He said my life now had meaning. It wasn't just I'm going to exist and die and go extinct. Men must have a reason for living. You have to have something that you're living for. Martin Luther King Jr. said this. He goes, if a man doesn't have anything worth dying for, he isn't fit to live. And that's the problem, is that all of these young men are being raised in a system that is destroying their will to live. Our society is hell-bent on diminishing masculinity, destroying masculinity in males at every level. According to Christina Haas-Summers, our educational system is designed to treat boys like girls. She says girls are the gold standard and boys are deficient. School districts across the country are adopting radical gender ideology policies that state there's no difference between a male or a female. This is terrible. Disney is now specifically using its platform for families and children to push sexuality themes, sexual themes, LGBTQ plus ideology. You know, they're doing it in their movies. You know, the biggest thing right now was they made a cartoon with Buzz Lightyear or something, and they put these lesbian relationships in it, and then it bombs at the box office. And the reason why it bombs is because why? People are what? Homophobic or something. And you're like, okay, that has nothing to do with it.
I watched the movie. The movie was just bad in general.
The movie was just bad in general. Yeah. So I just find that interesting. Universities across the land are requiring males to sit through freshman orientation courses, right? And when they're in there, the vast majority of them require you to watch a propaganda film called The Masks We Wear. And the whole point of this propaganda film is to say that males are all toxic because they're males. You know, this is absolutely ridiculous. And so what happens is we're trying to destroy masculinity and then what happens is females are now upset with what they've produced. I got a video from this gal who analyzes this. I really think it's kind of interesting what she says. She shows a real life situation where a woman needs help and no guy will help her and why it happens. Her analysis is really interesting. Let's listen.
I haven't seen this, but I think I could already have an idea.
No, this is different than you think it's going to be. This is too much. Girlfriend got stuck.
Bail out. Just bail.
She got stuck. She didn't want to throw it. So now she's trying to get guys to come over and help her to lift that thing off her back. And I guarantee you there are guys that saw what was going on and were like, I'm staying out of this. I don't want to be in some video. I'm not getting involved. I'm approaching her, all that. And this is what I say about like feminism wrecking men, because your natural instinct as a man would just be like, let me go over and help this woman, right? Normal. You got to be afraid to do everything now. And I think that's why when people say the death of gentlemen and all this, women complain. I saw a video of a very prominent female figure being like, oh, all the good men are gone. It's like, well, you killed them. You killed whatever was inside of them that would have made them actually act like men. Guys are afraid to be men.
Yeah. Feminism has disincentivized men from being gentlemen.
Isn't that interesting? She says the natural instinct would be to go help.
Yeah, but I mean, I've had people when I was living in Oregon that I opened a door and I got
yelled at.
And it's like my mama taught me and my grandmother very forcefully taught me I open doors for women and I got yelled at. And so it's like there is that question of like, well, what am I quote unquote allowed to do now? Because I don't want to get yelled at and offend someone just because I have a belief that I should be gentlemanly, right? And so it's like it makes you second guess everything.
And what kind of society do we want? What kind of society do we end up with when this is the prevailing attitude towards men and males and masculinity? Women end up not being happy. She said a prominent person, very prominent, is complaining, where have all the good men gone? And she's like, well, you killed them. It's all your fault.
What a great line.
Yeah. So if it's women who have done this, who have pushed for and created this environment, at the very least, secular women sat by and approved of this because they believed it benefited them. And this is really salty to say, but there's a lot of Christian women. I'm talking about the society in general in America, secular women, but there's some Christian women that have propagated this ideology and allowed it to take root even in their own thinking because it benefited them. They believed at some level. And now they're reaping what they've sowed. They're reaping what they've allowed to be seeded into our culture, and they're not happy with it. So it's so interesting. It's, the problem with the world is men, so they allow these radical feminist ideologies to get pushed out there, right? It's like, well, we'll just allow that to happen because maybe, even though I don't believe that, I'm not going to really push against it because, maybe it'll benefit me a little bit. I might make more money in my job, or I might get more promotions, or I might get this, or I might get that. And so women,
which
secular
are not
women,
bad desires, right?
Yeah, but what happened is they allowed these radical ideologies to take root. They didn't push against it, right? And I have hundreds, maybe thousands of articles from women who are former feminists, right? And they get their masters and their PhDs, and they're pushing for all this. They get married, and then they have kids, and guess what they give birth to? A boy. And then their boy becomes a teenager. And then their boy goes off to college. And now all of these women are saying, I'm not a feminist anymore because they're trying to destroy my son, And so all of these women who were younger were really into that. So my point is this, is that, we blame men for everything.
It is interesting that the phrase "where have all the good men gone" implies that there were good men and
Yeah.
they weren't all bad, toxic, terrible things,
Yeah.
which is the general story these days. Is basically every man that has existed before now has caused all of these problems and they're all terrible, and making all these generalizations about all the men. But then you use the phrase, well, where have all the good men gone? And it's like, well, there had to have been good men. You're not.
This is a
making
catch-22.
sense.
It's not making
There's
sense.
either good men or there's not good men, but the way the media portrays it and the feminist ideologies that some of these extreme people are doing, it's no, every single man on the planet's bad. Basically, there was a joke in an old Boy Meets World episode way back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And Topanga, who at that point, early in her character development, they do this like future casting of what they're going to grow up and be. And she says she's going to be president of the United States. And the teacher says, well, who's your husband? And she's like, oh, I don't have a husband. They're just all breeding stock. And I'm like, ooh, okay. Like, what? I was just rewatching this, but it's like, that could be a form if
How long ago was that a sitcom?
oh,
where they were
like
saying this?
in the 90s.
Yeah, see this ideology.
And they use it as a joke, but
Yeah.
like now, we are
Absolutely.
30 years later, we're like, oh, that's not necessarily, I'm sure there are some feminists that would prefer that.
Okay, what happened if in Boy Meet World show in the sitcom, if there's a boy right in there, the other guy, what's his name?
Corey.
What if Corey said, well, when I want to grow up, I want to have a harem and I want to use women as breeding stock? Do you think that would have passed the censors? No, absolutely not. And this is my point, is that our society outside of the church, outside the kingdom of God, in the secular American society, has seeded these feminist radical ideologies to the point where even sitcoms joke about it constantly. It's been rooted into our public education system at levels that are unbelievable. And then we wonder why our boys have grown up into these confused, high anxiety type people, and then the other opposite is that some guys boys can't handle it. So what they do is they adopt extreme stereotypes or caricatures of masculinity.
They swing the other direction
Yes.
to try to quote unquote fight against it, but then that really is not the way.
Yeah, the women are trash. Women are just used sex objects,
Right.
and they just want to steal it. So I'm just going to use them and play them. And women call these guys what? Players, right? They just want to go around and play them all the time. And so my point is that men and males and females, adopted ideologies that were seeded into our culture in the 60s and 70s, and now we're reaping that. And so it's going to take males and females coming together in the original idea
To fix it.
And that's a big thing. So
is there any other? We had two axiomatic truths, and knowing you probably at least have one more, right?
I could have a lot more, but in
We got
lieu
time
of
for
time,
one more.
one more. I think the third one is this: is the best thing for males, the best thing for a guy, in order for him to become truly masculine, is for families and society at large to recapture the point and purpose of masculinity. Just like I was saying, our culture has just become hell-bent on destroying it at every level. And so the first thing is, you cannot, if you're a family and if you want to influence your society, do not look at the educational system to value the point and purpose of masculinity. Our educational system, as I said before, is designed to eradicate masculinity. All of the government-run schools have adopted feminist ideology at every level, in the way that they run their classrooms, in the things that you have to learn, and all this kind of stuff. All right, the outcomes are the evidence. I was just looking today, in 2022. The Nation's report card, which is the gold standard for ranking, and they found out that right now in 2022, in states that are in the top 10 performers, Idaho, a lot of people don't know this, educationally, we're in the top 10% of 10 to 15% of performers on educational outcomes. You never hear that.
No, we just get the stat that we spend the least amount of money, so we're probably which everyone associates as, well, they're
doing
probably
poorly.
dumb potato farmers.
Yeah, but we're in the top. But even then, even though we're like when it comes to math, we're in like the top 7 of all states on outcomes. But guess what? That only means that 32% of our kids can do math at 8th grade level.
It's a low bar to to achieve.
It's a low bar to be in the top 10. And this is what's so amazing is that the outcomes are that way. Because of why? Because our schools aren't interested in educating kids anymore. It's interested in propagating these ideologies. They've become so hell-bent on this because it's all about political control. And if you really want me to get ranting and raving about it, I'll talk about social theory and Marxist ideology and where all this comes from. You know, half of the private schools out there today have gone woke and adopted these Marxist feminist ideologies. Half of the private schools that you send your kids to, right? Once they get to university, it's 10 times as bad. It is 10 times as bad. And so it's not good. Don't look to the media to value or recapture the point and purpose of masculinity. Social media is more interested in these ideologies and strong women characters. Hollywood is built on stereotypes. As I said before, there hasn't been a positive portrayal of a man in a movie or social media unless it's a caricature of masculinity. You know, you can't look at the stereotypes of our society. Our society created a caricature of masculinity. It's 100% determined by outward appearance. You know, you got to be 6'4", 250 pounds, 6-pack ab, and a beard that goes halfway down your chest. You know, oh, that's masculinity. So you know, what does every guy that doesn't have that think? Well, I'm not a man's man because I don't look like that.
Right.
And I was reading a stat the other day. Do you know how many people, males and females in American society, have a 6-pack ab?
I'm sure it's not a lot.
Less than 1%.
I mean, that tracks.
Out of 335 million people, less than 1% actually have a 6-pack ab. And yet we hold that up as the gold standard, you know?
Right.
And you can also use this axiomatic analysis on females. You know, these poor girls grow up with these magazines and movies, and that is that, well, this is the perfect, female physique.
Right.
And this is horrible for them because we're not teaching people what is true feminine and what is true masculine. We use stereotypes to do it. The only places that have a modicum of masculinity for boys is athletics. And this is why so many families have their boys involved in athletics. It's in athletics where boys learn discipline, teamwork, pulling your own weight, accepting responsibility for your failures, and most importantly, competition. Competition is critical for males in developing masculinity. Is competition the goal? No. But it is a process. Right? A perfect example is, I tell this story, is this mom is trying to get her son to drink milk, right? And her son says, no, I'm not doing it. And so she got in a power struggle with him. And she comes, so dad gets home from work at that time. And she goes, I'm at wit's end. I'm going to pull my hair out. Your son, he won't even drink his milk. And dad goes, okay, I'll take care of it. So dad goes, grabs a gallon of milk out of a thing and a glass and sits down at the table and he pours him a glass. And he goes, I bet you I could drink mine faster than yours. And that kid grabbed it and started chugging it. And he chugs his and he slams it down. And he goes, beat you every time. He goes, so here she's trying to get him to drink his milk. Dad does it in the blink of an eye. How?
Right.
Turns it into a competition.
Yes.
You see, that is a natural instinct in males. It's a part of your biology, your neural wiring of your brain. And our society is hell-bent on destroying that in males. And what you will not like what you get. You will not like the society that you get. It will be psychopathic, right? It'll be filled with psychopaths and beta sheep. That's it, and no one will be happy. Fundamentally, males are meant to be masculine. There's no way around this fact. It is rooted in their biology, and when you are flooded with testosterone as a fetus, and then when you hit puberty and you're flooded with another role of testosterone, your body and your brain are radically changed, okay? It changes how you think, what your brain focuses on, how it processes information. It focuses on your bone structure, your muscle mass. A lot of people don't know this, but 1 pound of muscle mass is more dense and more powerful than 1 pound of female muscle mass, all because of testosterone, that hormone, and how it has changed us. It's not only rooted in your biology, you're meant to be masculine in your psychology. Men who are married and have children are happy and more successful, and they actually live longer than anybody else.
Despite parents saying you're going to put me in a grave early.
Yeah, exactly, to their kids. Yeah, they have more meaning and purpose in their lives. So in your psychology, the masculinity is rooted there to go out and to provide and protect. Your life has more meaning when what you do is done in service and protection and provision for other people around you. But most importantly, more than anything anything else, it's really critical that you hear this, salty pastor audience. It's rooted in your spirituality. Males are meant to reflect the image of God, and that is a masculine calling. And this can only be done when you're right with God and you're following a king. It brings a sense of discipline and focus. A lot of people don't realize how powerful monogamy is. It's a masculine trait and how powerful it is. I got a video of this gal who talks about the importance of monogamy on society. Listen to this.
The men who are being squeezed out of the marriage market, what does Mother Nature do to them to help them find a mate? Raises their testosterone, makes them more hypersexual, makes them more aggressive, actually raises crime rates. Monogamy is good for humans because it's good for cultures and societies. The more monogamy you have, the lower the crime rate. Here's why. When you have one group of men at the top, whether you call it a harem or whether you just say it's an athlete with a lot of baby mamas, one group of men at the top who has more women, that leaves a group of men at the bottom, often in the lower classes, who are angry, they can't find mates, and so crime rates go up, and rape goes up, sexual assault goes up. Women, by not choosing to marry men without college degrees, are creating higher crime rates, accidentally. They are creating unstable, unsafe society. They are often losing the opportunity to reproduce themselves. 1 in 5 women will be denied the opportunity to become mothers if they want to, because they can't get a guy to commit on time. So the big message here is, women, stop it. Get patriarchy out of your own head. You don't have to have a Prince Charming that makes more money and is taller and everything else for you. There could be a really great guy, and your idea of a power guy should be a guy who can power a stroller.
Isn't that interesting how she says that monogamy is so powerful because it benefits society, and the only way to recapture masculinity, in my opinion, is when women get behind the value of developing masculinity in males again. And I like how she said, get the patriarchy nonsense, the patriarchy mental framework out of your head, because it's hurting you. And don't think that way. Think in different ways.
Yeah, that video is really powerful to end on, and I appreciate you sharing that with us, Pastor, because I think those ideas, that idea of a society can really benefit when both sides choose monogamy and choose to interact with each other, right? Like, we can't put this all on women of like, women just have to go and find men because otherwise they're going to go out and commit crimes, right? Like, the men also have to commit to, I also want to be in monogamy and I also want to be part of society, which now they're choosing not to be, right? And so it's like, we need to come together if we're really wanting to benefit and improve our society and our culture as a whole. So any final thoughts as we finish up?
Well, it's like I said, is that, our world and these ideologies have pulled us apart, and it's up to us, males and females, and males in particular, guys. You need to have relationships with friends, first with God, and then with friends, and then with your family. These things are critically important, and they bring your life deep meaning. And so you got to let somebody love you before it's too late.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Pastor, for all of your enticing thoughts to think about over the weekend before we listen to Sunday's message, which I'm sure will be just as good and just as thought-provoking as today's conversation. Thank you guys so much for joining us, and we'll see you on Sunday here at Foothills Christian Church.
Blessings.